So again, the pasuk says, "Innecha yafe dodi," right? So, as we know, now it's the nefesh or the neshama responding, or Knesset Israel responding to, or the neshama or Kadosh Baruch Hu. Yeah. Innecha yafe dodi, you are beautiful, my love. Af naim, and you are also pleasant. Af arsenu, and our bed where we rest, where we love each other, where we care for each other. Ra'anana is always full of life, is always very fresh. Okay. Says the Malbim something beautiful. He says, why does the nefesh or the neshama, when they talk about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they say, oh, hinecha yafe dodi, you're just yafe, right? Statement. You're beautiful, my love. Af naim, and you're also naim. So he says, the Malbim explains, he says like this. He says there is two ways to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's two ways to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The first one is Yafeh. Inecha Yafeh, you are beautiful, my love. You, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is beautiful. Says the Malbim, this refers to the awe a person gets when he sees and understands the Kedusha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and how meticulous HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in the world. And the Rambam says, when you learn science, you understand science, you see astrology, anatomy, biology, and you see this greatness, you see this amazing equilibrium creation. Yafeh. You see how HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Yafeh. Number one. And then he says, Av Naim. Naim is pleasant. Pleasant is something that's much more subjective, personal. He says, you have to go and also recognize the added value of the Kedusha, of the Neshama that resides within you, and its impact it has on your life and your behavior. So that reflection, that understanding, that connection to something that's more personal is a different also level of connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then he says, Arsenu, but when our bed, right, our couch, where we both lie together, where, says the Malbim, we make love together. How do we start? Did we start Shir HaShirim? Ishakeni mineshikot pihu, right? That's what I want. I want the kiss of neshikat pihu. He says, where does that happen? It happened on the couch. And the same way, says the Malbim, the kiss on the mouth is a wet kiss, is a kiss that is very connecting. That same type of moment of vibration of love, when you have two people that kiss each other and they want to kiss each other, it's a very bonding moment. Forget about everything else. That moment is extremely connecting. It's a high. He says the Malbim, this happens when it happens on the couch, when we're both satisfied and we're close to each other, and it's ra'anan, it's fresh. This connection is vibrant. And he explains, and he says that in order for me to want to kiss you, I need to be able to tap into those two layers of connection with you. Connection number one, the acknowledgement of your greatness in the world. Acknowledgement number two, the ability to recognize the positive outcome the Neshama has in my life, the Kedusha has in my life. And when I am able to bring the two together, now me, I love you. After we've had already the witnessing of HaKadosh Baruch Hu loving us, right? Which is the pasuk right before that. So the Malbim says this is how I get to a level of Ishakeni Mineshikot Pihu. When there is the recognition of Hashem's love for us, right? Everything we've explained to understand how HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks at us and loves us and what he's expecting from us in order for him to love us. But that's not enough. We also have to want to love him. That's the beauty of the big request of the chapter, Ishakeni Mineshikot Pihu. Pihu, the two mouths. We need to both want to get together and both kiss each other and want to connect. So says the Malbim, that's the avodah that we have to do. Number one, building this awe of perfection, from the perfection of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world. And this comes with what? This comes with da'at, this comes with awareness, this comes with acknowledgement, without taking anything for granted, extra sensitivity. All these traits allow a person to appreciate everything, from colors to shapes, to smell, to textures, to situation, right? It's like you take a cook. A cook smells the food and he knows exactly what's inside. Why? Because he has a very refined sense of smell. You take somebody that is blind and he starts touching, he can detect anything because that's his way of connecting with the world. Or he can hear, and he will hear a musician. He can hear every nuance of every different musical instrument. To the point, and I think we've spoken about that. The Rabbeinu Nissim writes in the Drashot that the Navi, the person that builds Ruach HaKodesh, that builds Nevuah, and by the way, this is what Am Yisrael is yearning for, right? What are we asking? According to the Malbim, Shlomo HaMelech was expressing his journey to the different connection of Nevuah, right? You remember in the beginning of the Shiurim. So says Rabbeinu Nissim that the more you enrich yourself through your senses, the more information you have, and this is basic information, yeah? The most basic information, it's senses. So it's as physical as it gets. But the more you're able to then put together the right puzzle and understand what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is trying to teach you. And this is how you build Ruach HaKodesh. This is how you build Nevuah, is by enriching yourself with as much information as possible. Because, and this is what, we're going back to the Rivash, if you're that's for you, Andy. The Rivash says, Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid, the Tzava'ah in his will. He says, why do we say Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid? Hashem, you're in front of me all the time. Shiviti can be, you're in front of me, okay? You're always in front of me, but it also means Shivyon, equality. Says the Rivash, in order to see Hashem and understand HaKadosh Baruch Hu in your life, you need to make sure that you're impartial from everything that's happening around you and only connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So somebody gives you praise, you shouldn't feel good about it. Somebody's belittling you, you shouldn't feel bad about it. You eat food that's tasty, you shouldn't be satisfied about it. You eat food that's not tasty, you shouldn't feel upset. If you're able to channel all these emotions that are dependent on superficial interaction, right? If you're able to annul them and channel your focus on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, suddenly you're able to connect to the dimension that's hidden, okay, in the creation. And that's when you unveil HaKadosh Baruch Hu in your life and see his true light. This is what the Malbim is telling us. I think you guys had questions.
Rav, you spoke about the nishika and creating that love with Hashem, and we know that, you know, if you just use an analogy with man and wife, you know, there are two ways to create love. There's a love that's based on foundation, right? That's a true love, and then there's a love that's based on infatuation and not really love. You know, how do we make sure that the love that we have with Hashem is the correct and proper love, you know, as it would be?
Bravo, but well, that it takes the last few psukim. That's exactly the point. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us what he's expecting from us in order for him to be able to love us. And now we're telling him what it takes from us to work on loving him. That's exactly the last psukim. And through that osmosis, and we spoke about it, right? And Naich Yonim. And Naich Yonim from the Gaon, and Naich Yonim from the Malbim, and how all this comes together as a avodah to be able to be acceptable in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to feel his love, to see his love, to allow him to love us.
But how about ours towards him, our love towards Hashem?
Oh, so that's the passage we just read. It takes two things. It takes, number one, acknowledgement and being in awe of his work around us, of his kedusha around us, what he's created from a scientific perspective, from a biological perspective, from a physics, from astronomy, right? From your flesh, you can see the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. Number two, acknowledging the positive outcome from the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu within us, i.e. the neshama. What does it give me? How do I benefit from it? How does it make me a better person? How does it allow me to grow and be more satisfying and being more open to the midot and more open to chinuch? And put all this together and bring them together. And now you fuse the chokhmah that you get from HaKadosh Baruch Hu from the outside world, the positive outcome that you get from within, your own introspection, and bring all this together and say, wow, okay, now what do I do with this for you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu? It can only be love. It can only be love.
As opposed to it being a transactional relationship where you're asking for things, and if you're getting what you want, then you're happy, and if you're not getting what you want, then you're not happy.
That's right.
Which would be the equivalent of a love, you know, with a man and woman that's based on infatuation rather than a real foundation.
That's right. Or, like the Rambam says in the 7th Perek of Sanhedrin, when he introduces the Yud Gimel attribute, the 13 attributes, he says this is the love there is between a child and a parent.
Right.
The child doesn't love in the beginning. He's just connected and dependent. You cannot say that the child loves. The child learns to love, right? So in the beginning, he says when you want to teach him something, does a child love knowledge? For example, does a child love knowledge? He doesn't love knowledge. He doesn't know what knowledge is. But what do? You give him a candy, and he transactions, right? Okay, give me the candy, and I will say Aleph. But if you don't give me another candy, I will not say Bet. So you understand? So you give him, and then as he grows, he grows out of candies, and now he wants something a little bit more sophisticated, right? And some people, even when they're adults, they need that transactional interaction to do something. It's just they never grew up in the relationship. The only thing that changed is the toy, the transactional toy. From candies to buildings and planes and yachts and I don't know what. Good. So that's now we understand, if you will, what it takes from us in two perspectives, in order for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to reveal his love to us and for us to be able to love him. And at that point we have Ishakini Mineshikot Pihu. And what is the outcome of it? Okay, So Yishakeni Mineshikot Piru, we have that kiss. But how do we consolidate it? How do we make it something that can last? Right? Because a kiss is a moment in history. It's a moment in life. Everybody knows that you can have the most beautiful moment for X amount of seconds, of minutes, or even hours. It's finished. It's finished. Shlomo HaMelech understands that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows that this is not something that you can build a history with. And that's where the last pasuk comes in. Pasuk Yud Zayin. Korot batenu arazim. The korot, the beams of our house, is made of the cedar. The cedar is a very strong, very tall tree. It's what you use, it's those beams that never go away. They can last forever. Raitenu. So here there's a difference of pirushim. Okay, Raitenu is the or the little pieces of woods that sit on the roof between the big beams. That's what the Gaon says. Or Raitenu can also mean the rafter. The rafter, meaning the rahit, is a piece of furniture. Okay, it's a piece of furniture that sits inside the house. So we're going to start with the Gaon Mivilna. Korot batenu arazim. The Gaon says the following. He says that we have two types of woods. We have the cedar, okay, and we have the cypress. The cypress is it's almost like the trees they use the goyim, on in December. I don't know how
in Christmas.
Yeah. So that's that type of tree. It's very leafy, very, very leafy. Very leafy. So says the Gaon, he says the reitim, the korot batenu arazim. This is the foundation and structure of the house. This is what really holds everything, right? This is the essential. This is the main structure. The korot is their beams. Reitim is what channels the if there's too much sun or if there's rain, it's what will cover up the house and protect the house from the sun or protect the house from the rain. So one is structural, and the other one is more than aesthetic, right? It's not aesthetic. It's not structural, but it's for the benefit of the people that lives inside the house, right? So one it serves the house, and the other one serves the people that are inside the house. Good. Korot, batenu arazim. The structure of the house comes from the cedar, and the structure of the house doesn't serve the person; it serves the building of the house, right? But the Reitenu Berotim, it's really Beroshim. Anyways, but we're not going to get into that. Just Berotim means the cypress. So Reitenu, those little ladders of wood, these are really, they're not structural so much. What they do is they protect the people that are inside, sun, heat, rain. Says the Gaon Mivilna, this is what it takes to have a real house and a presence inside the house. It takes two types of avodah. You need the korot. The korot is the Talmidei Chachamim, is the Torah. The korot is the foundation that doesn't move. It's those pillars of knowledge and of wisdom that can sit for years, for generations. It's this Torah that never fades away. Those people that represent the structure of in life, in a community, of the Torah. Korot batenu arazim. And then you have the Reitenu berotim. Who's Reitenu berotim? So he says Reitenu berotim is the people that do mitzvot. People that do mitzvot, people that you have, they're here, they're benefiting the community, they're benefiting their family, they're benefiting their life. But if they're here or not here, it won't make a difference. Good? And he explains something, and then he says, these two types of people, this two type of avodah breaks down into three. He says, we say, the pasuk says, "Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha." Here we're talking about love, right? We're talking. Let's put back in perspective. We're talking about the love between Am Yisrael and Hakadosh Baruch Hu, between the men and Hakadosh Baruch Hu. So he says, okay, so let's go back to the mitzvah of loving Hashem. He says, "Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha bechol levavecha ubechol nafshecha ubechol meodecha." So he says, how do you create this unity and this love? So he says, in order to create the love for Hashem, you need to make sure that you have unity and harmony between the three types of bechol levavecha, bechol nafshecha, bechol meodecha. Because at the end of the day is the ahavta. There's one ahava that is built on three legs. Bechol levavecha, with all your heart. Ubechol nafshecha, with all your soul, with all your essence. Ubechol meodecha, and with all your means. So says the Gaon Vilna something spectacular. He says HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought to our attention when we built the Mishkan how to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says he needed to bring all Am Yisrael together as one. The word that he uses is so spectacular. He says the following: ואיך התייחדות כל הלבבות של כל עם ישראל ביחד? How did HaKadosh Baruch Hu unite all the hearts of Am Yisrael? How did he make everyone become one? ציווה HaKadosh Baruch Hu ויקחו לי תרומה. He says, okay, you will all give teruma, you will all give donations for the Bet HaMikdash. Asher yidevenu libo, and you give based on what you have in your heart, the way you want to give it. וכל אחד יתנדב כפי נדבת ליבו על המשכן, ונתחברו שם הלבבות. Everybody gave from his heart, and that's how all the hearts became one. Says the Gaon Vilna, something amazing. בכל לבביך ובכל מאודיך, the first and three, leg one and leg three, בכל לבביך from all your heart, ובכל מאודיך from all your means. Right? We have one in the middle, number two. בכל מאודיך, בכל נפשך, we put it aside for a second. These two pillars were brought together and united through the tzedakah that Am Yisrael did. But it wasn't like the shekel HaKodesh, machatzit shekel, where everybody had to give a specific amount. Everybody gave whatever they want. More or less, it's irrelevant. But when it says to God, when you give from your heart for one cause, what it does is that cause brings together everybody to become one. Now pay attention. It said bechol levavecha. It's not talking about how much you give to show the other you gave more. It's how much you give from your heart. It's like those closed auctions, right? Nobody knows why. You put your best foot forward. Nobody knows who gave what. Nobody knows. So they gave from their heart. There was no ego. There was only heart. Says the Gaon Vilna, this brought unity between bechol levavecha, from all your heart, from all your means, because it's tzedakah, right? And that connected all the hearts of Am Yisrael to become one, to be able to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But we're missing one element. Yes. We're missing one element. Bechol nafshecha. Bechol nafshecha. We have bechol levavecha, bechol nafshecha, bechol me'odecha. So we spoke about the 1 and 3. We're bechol nafshecha. So he says bechol the nefesh, bechol nafshecha. It's much deeper than just an action or an emotion. The nefesh is basically the last representation, spiritual representation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? What is the nefesh? We've explained it many times. The nefesh is the spiritual inflow of Hashem's will for physicality to exist. Good? So the nefesh, bechol nafshecha, is that you have to take all your nefesh and elevate it. Who was that? Betzalel, Aholiab. It's the ones that actually built the Mishkan. They immersed themselves so much into the Mesirut Nefesh, into the sacrifice to build the Mishkan, that they were able to fuse, okay, their Nefesh to Bechol Nafshecha, with all Klal Yisrael. And that was imbibed and immersed inside the Mishkan. The build out of the Mishkan, the presence of the Mishkan was Bechol Nafshecha of Aholiab and Betzalel. Now what's fantastic, Betzalel ben Uri ben Hur leMatei Yehuda, and Aholiab from which Shevet? Shevet Dan. The Bechir Sheba, I think we said that. Bechir Sheba Shvatim, the number one of the Shvatim, Yehuda, and the last of the Shvatim, Dan. Together, they built the Mishkan. Here we see how you need the top and the bottom in order to build the most beautiful presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Never belittle somebody, because maybe that might be the reason why you will be able to create something magnificent. Yehuda and Dan. So now we know also, Shimshon HaGibor. His father was from Shevet Dan, his mother was from Shevet Yehuda. And we know that Yaakov Avinu thought that he was Mashiach. Here again, you see Mashiach is the byproduct of Yehuda and Dan, the best of the Shevatim and the worst of the Shevatim. This is the Gadlut. So comes the Gaon Mivina, going back to what he's saying. He says, you have Bechol Nafshecha. Bechol Nafshecha is what? Is the Korot. The Torah, the Talmidei Chachamim, the Avodat Hashem, the pillar, the connection with the pillar of the Torah, of the structure, has to come from your nefesh. You need to use your nefesh and bond to the Talmidei Chachamim in order to make your nefesh bechol nafshecha, in order to use your own korah, your own beam. Very, very explicit. Listen, because this is like very fundamental. The connection, we think that the connection to Hashem is a connection, right? I feel Hashem loves me. I feel Hashem talks to me. I feel. Okay, that's great. But you know what? It's a lot of imagination also, right? I mean, we've seen it a lot. Many times people think that they are, anyways. So here the Gaon Mivina comes based on Shir HaShirim, and it brings to us the interaction and from where you need to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu on what level. We have Korot and we have Reit. We have the beams, and then we have the secondary pieces of wood. The foundation is the Talmidei Chachamim, the Torah, right? The wisdom of the Torah. In order to have your own Korah, this comes from a connection of nefesh. It has to come from your core essence. It has to be a connection that basically awakes a dedication of sacrifice in order to bring out the most beautiful outcome possible. Just like Betzalel and Aolial. It's you do it at time when you're on a high like Betzalel, but you do it even when you're on a low like Aolial. It's irrelevant. It's a dedication to build a presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Number one, this is the korot. Reitenu, what fluctuates, what's important, but more for a benefit. The reitenu, berotin. Okay, so that's already the lev, that's the emotional connection, what I feel like I want to do, or what I'm attracted to, or it's the nedava, it's the actual action. The tzedakah, the mitzvah tefillin, the achnasat orchim, all the mitzvot that are more transactional. Going back to what you're saying, so they have a place. But they have one. They don't have the main place. What brings everything together, and this is the order of the pasuk: bechol levavecha, ubechol nafshecha, ubechol meodecha. Right? What brings bechol levavecha and bechol meodecha together is bechol nafshecha. If you don't have the core essence and the central structure, if you don't have the korot, you cannot have the reatim, right? Those little pieces of wood cannot sit anywhere if you don't have the structural beams in place. So if we put bad things in perspective, what the Gan is telling us is the following. In order to have a presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in order to build your Bet HaMikdash, to build your own Mishkan, we know that Chachamim tell us that the Torah, the home, the union at home is like a Mikdash Katan, right? It's like a little Bet HaMikdash. A person is also considered like a Bet HaMikdash. How do you build your Bet HaMikdash? How do you build your Mishkan? You need structure. What is your structure? Your connection from your core essence to the Torah and the Korot and the Chachamim. Number one. And when I say Chachamim, I don't mean an individual. I mean the Chachamim from the Torah. Okay? Not individual. That's one. Around it, what flourishes it, what embellishes it is Bechol Levavecha, is doing things from the heart, connecting, blah, 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 and the actions, Bechol Meodecha, all different actions. Together, you have the ability now to have the last two pesukim before that pasuk coexist. That's now you have the structure, you have the Mishkan, and now you can have and that's Korot Batenu Arazim, by the way. Korot Batenu Arazim, right? Those are the Korot, those were the two how you call the two the two korot, the two beams that we used to carry the Aron HaKodesh with, right? The Aron HaBrit with the Keruvim had two handles, big handles, that were made of Arazim, right? So, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu sits in between. Sits mamash in between. So that's the first pirush according to the Gaon Vilna. Are we clear? Any questions? It's very, very technical.
Why you said when you say Chachamim, you said to the Torah, not today to Chachamim of today?
No, what I mean by that is that when we talk about Dvekut with Chachamim, it could be very intricate. Why? Because when you connect to a person, okay, you connect to his to not only to his Torah, but to his personality also. Okay, so and that's why things can get a little bit hairy. So if you're connected to the Torah, you encapsulate your relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the Torah of that person, and you don't get distracted by the rest. Stanley, any questions?
Does different mitzvot fit into different categories for us, or is the idea to connect to them on multiple levels?
Repeat the question, I'm sorry.
So we said you're supposed to love Hashem bechol levavecha, bechol nafshecha, bechol me'odecha. So do different mitzvot require different facets of the three? Meaning, is tefillah supposed to be with your lev,
Yes.
or is it supposed to be with your lev and your soul? Like,
Good. Bechol nafshecha. Very good. Very good.
I know
It's-
I always
it's-
come back to tefillah, but I'm
No,
still on the road.
Rahmana libaba. The tefillah is the lev. The tefillah is the heart. Bechol levavecha. Bechol nafshecha is the Torah. Limud Torah. Dvekut betalmidei chachamim. Leolam yu einecha root et morecha. You have to have in front of you always your Rav. The one that you respect. You have to fear your Rav like you fear HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They have to be, your Rav has to be in your eyes like a malach, Hashem Tzevakot. This is why I'm saying that if you cannot, okay, belittle the interaction to the Torah to the human, but to the wisdom that he gives out. Me'odecha is from all your means. What does that mean? Every mitzvah, if you think about it, is somewhat or a financial sacrifice or a time sacrifice, right? That's me'odecha. That's all your means. Your time, effort, money, whether it's tefillin or matzah or etrog or lulav, or it doesn't matter what mitzvah it is. There's always an element of sacrifice. Good?
Yes.
So this summarizes the first pirush of the Gaon Livina. The Gaon Livina has a second pirush, where he shifts a little bit from the infrastructure that allows the couple to love each other and reside in an environment that is built and long-lasting, to the benefit that it has on the couple itself. And he says something beautiful. It's worth saying it. He says, Pirush Acher. He said, we have the korot, batenu, and we have the ra'it, right? We still have the korot and we have the ra'it. And he says the following. He says the korot and the ra'it represents the connection, the levels of connection between a husband and wife. He says, a wife, you can call her Isha. Okay, Mechila, step back. There's two benefits a man has from his wife, says the Gaon Livina. Two benefits. Benefit number one, intimacy. Keeps him away from Averot. Point blank. The second one, taking care of the house, the family, the kids, midot tovot, chinuch, making sure that the house is in control, has everything. And these are two different interactions between the husband and his wife. He says, Rabbi Yossi in Masechet Shabbat says, there's two, I can call my wife Ishti, my wife. In Hebrew, Ishti is my wife, right? But he says Ishti, it doesn't sound right. Why? Because it comes from the word Ishut. Ishut in Hebrew is the word referring to the intimacy between a husband and wife. So when you call your wife Ishti, okay, says the Gaon Livina, you're referring to that type of relationship with her. That she's your wife in a level of connection that is based on intimacy. So Rav Yossi said, no, I don't want to call my wife Ishti. I want to call my wife Beiti, my house. Because that refers to all the dimension that she brings inside the house. From food, to chokhmah, to bina, to chinuch, to midot tovot, to the structure in the kids, right? This is the hardest work. We don't know what it's like, but but to stay home and handle all the different factors of a house, it drives a man completely nuts, completely crazy. We wouldn't be able to handle it like they do.
And we prove it now in COVID.
Yes. Yes. So it says, Korot is the foundation of the house. Is Beiti. Reit is Ishti, is the intimacy. And he says, the Pasuk says, Korot Batenu Arazim. Our relationship, the relationship in our home of the Bayit, right? You and me, my wife, our connection is built on what? What's the foundation? It's built on Korot. It's built on the respect, on the acknowledgement, on the appreciation, on the value of everything you bring to the house. Raitenu, but the level of intimacy, berotim, is those little pieces of wood. They're there, they're benefit, but they're not the most important. They're secondary. So he says here, we find even also the interaction HaKadosh Baruch Hu has with us and us with him, where we show HaKadosh Baruch Hu that what's important is not what I get from you. It's not the reitim. Yes, it's good. It has a place in my life. Reitim berotim. But the core of my foundation in our relationship, me and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is not the intimacy. It's not the give and take. It's everything you bring into my world. The ability to give me chokhmah, to give me midot tovot, to give me everything inside my world that allows me to be able to feel comfortable, health, everything. That's the second pirush of the Gaon. Are we good? We're still alive? Okay. Now, so B'Sha'a Tova, U'B'Mazal Hayaya, we just finished the first perek according to the Gaon Mivilna. Mazal Tov, Mazal Tov.
Mazal Tov.
Beautiful.
Now we
Thank
have
nice.
one more pirush, the pirush of the Malbim. The Malbim says, if you recall, that what are we looking to accomplish? A connection of prophecy, right? Ishakeni Mineshikot Pihu, where we have such a connection that we are showered with Ruach HaKodesh and Nevuah. This is the connection that we want. Yeah? We were even belittling the relationship that is only superficial or even emotional. We want the real connections. That's the interaction. That's what we're screaming. So he says, this represents almost like the request almost represents the Mishkan. Why? Because the Mishkan is something that's limited, right? And we're asking something that is limitless, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to reside in an environment that's limited. We're asking infinite to coexist with definite. When we ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to reside within us in a level of Nevuah of Ruach HaKodesh, that's what we're asking. That's what we're asking. So he says, it's possible. It's very possible. But it takes two types of avodah. He says, first of all, it takes the korot batenu arazim. And he explains, he says, He says that you need to recognize, it's a little bit intricate, but he says it, okay. He says most intellectuals, including Aristotle, I'm opening parentheses, most intellectuals, deep inside, do not believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu interacts with men. For what reason? Very simple. Explain to me, he, the greatest of greatest, the power of all. Why would he care about a guy in Argentina or in Brooklyn? Okay, why should he care? Like, what am I for God to have any type of attention to me? Intellectually makes no sense.
But intellectually, you could also say, why would he create us to begin with? So if it's worthy of creation, then it's worthy of intervention.
Why? That you're jumping right now. Worthy of creation, who said he created you? Maybe he created an ecosystem for the pleasure. Maybe he has thousands of ecosystems. How do you know?
All right, you're going simply on intellectual.
Only on intellectual. Only on intellectual. So he says it's very, very, very difficult intellectually to grasp such a thing. So he says, korot, the fundamentals, the foundation of a relationship or of the foundation that allows a connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be on a level of nevuah is to truly embrace, understand, and believe that infinite can reside within definite. That something limitless can reside in a limited place. Just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu inside the Mishkan.
Which would be like a neshama?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He says exactly like the Bet HaMikdash. It's the coexistence, asher hem, he said, ובין הצמצום, בין הבלתי גבול, ובין הגבול, בין האינסוף ובין הצמצום, בין הבלתי גבול ובין הגבול. כי ברצות השם האינסוף ובלתי בעל תכלית לשכון כבוד על נפשות ישראל, אשר הם מוגבלים. Why would that be? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants it. This is Hashem's will. He says the foundation that allows a person to such high level and connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu spiritually is to truly believe that this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. I don't deserve it. I might not even understand it fully. And if you think you understand, you're lying to yourself, because intellectually, take away religion, it makes no sense. Makes no sense. It's like as if you say that you care about the stones that are in front of your house or the bricks that are, who cares? Who cares? As long as it's the same color and it's well put together, that's enough. Do you care if it's exactly the same size or 1 millimeter less, or if it's broken on what from within inside? You don't care. Who cares? So why should Hashem care about anything, especially about me? Okay, tell me maybe Moshe, I don't know, somebody extraordinary in history. But why would he care about the simple Yid that nobody heard of in Ukraine? That's probably a tzaddik yesod olam, and nobody knows. You understand what I'm saying? So says the Malbim, the foundation to emunah, the foundation to a true connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the korot, is to believe that this is what Hashem wants. He wants to be with me. He wants to love me. And when you think about it, if you don't have that, then everything else cannot add up, cannot line up, right? Because if we are the will of God, and we are the reflection of His Ratzon, right? There's no way in the world that I can get to Him if He doesn't want me. So everything, כל מה שברא הקדוש ברוך הוא לא בראו אלא לכבודו. Everything HaKadosh Baruch Hu built, created for his own kavod. It's his own will, and based on that, I know that I am his will. If I am his will, I need to take it to the next level. Okay? His will is to want to be with me, to love me. Very important cornerstone in the build-up of the relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And by the way, it's a big responsibility. When you think about it, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to be with me, you know what that means when you do Avirah? That means that you don't want to be with him. You understand the level of commitment it takes emotionally to live with the idea that Hashem wants to be with me. The infinite wants to narrow down all the way down in order to be with something that's meaningless in creation. Korot batenu arazim. But this is the foundation. This is what keeps a connection last. This is where you build. This is where you nurture. Good?
Rav, meaningless if we are alone. If we are all together, we have power.
Yes. Absolutely. And then he says, Berotenu, Reitenu Berotim, Reitenu. He says, when you have that, Reitenu are the tzinorot. It's like the little, the tzinorot is the pipes, the little pipes that channels where like those little pieces of wood, they allow the water to fall in the right place, not to enter, right? Or and if it kind of guides the water from going inside and going in the right place. So he says the berotim, the cypress, is made of a lot of leaves. Very, very, very one on top of the other. Yeah. You know what cypress tree is? Yeah. Cypress tree is what you have it. You know where you have it a lot. The style of cypress tree. You know, in front of in Deal, in front of the houses, you have those big trees that are very, very. It's not really trees. It's very, very leafy. It looks like the leaf looks like the leaf of the Christmas tree. And
Bob, it's a pine tree.
Huh?
It's a pine tree.
No, not the pine. The pine tree is broad. Yes, it's the leaf of the pine tree, but the cypress tree. If you look into it in Google, I'm sure you're going to see a lot of pictures of it. The cypress tree. It's very, very, very leafy. But what it does is that when there's water on it, when there's a lot of water on it, okay, it channels the water. It doesn't allow the water to go all the way down. It channels and pushes the water in different direction, protecting what's under it. So he says, Raitenu berotim. Tzipi, shalom aleichem.
How are
So
you?
good to see you. So good to see you.
I was listening to your voice.
Miss you a lot.
Me too. When are we supposed to see each other? Is it going to take long?
Hopefully not.
All the best. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom ומבורך, חודש טוב.
Bye bye.
ראיתנו ברוטים, so it says that we need to learn to channel the water of chesed and of kedusha, the shefa that HaKadosh Baruch Hu showers upon us needs to be channeled properly. And how is it channeled properly? Through that cypress tree, through those reitim. We need to have within that emunah, we need to have proper structure in our avodat Hashem, in our mitzvot. We need to know how each mitzvah channels and brings down beracha and brings down abundance. Says the Malbim, this is how you build a house of emunah, a house of love with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a place of true connection. When your emunah is very strong and assumed, and the responsibility is taken, and when your mitzvot, your action are organized and well tapped in, so that you can benefit through the mitzvot, from the shefa, from the abundance of the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that comes down when you do a mitzvah. So the Malbim kinds of says, okay, you want the nevuah? The nevuah is based on a very, very deep emunah. You want it, right? But also on an intellectual understanding of how you connect to the mitzvot and what happens and what do you have to tap in order to bring down what shefa, what beracha. So it's almost a zoomed in perspective from the zoomed in perspective of the first Pirush of the Gaon. Very technical, I know. I'm sorry. But Baruch Hashem, with that, we finished the first perek of Shir HaShirim. בשעה טובה ומוצלחת.
Amen.
Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rav. Thank you so much,
Any
guys.
questions?
Thank you for making it earlier today for me.
באהבה, בשמחה רבה. You're מזכה us in the mitzvah that you're making of ולכתך בדרך.
Yes.
Love you guys. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Bye, everybody. Shabbat shalom. Love you all.